All right, good luck.
Eating the raw meat, and he's like, "Oh, it's so chewy and so good." And you can just tell he went to the fucking bed.
It helps him stare at the sun better.
Oh yeah, of course. Let's all
And
sun gaze together, you guys.
no, while thinking the sun is just a projection because the Earth is flat.
Yeah, obviously. Like,
Okay,
the sun doesn't exist.
flat. Okay.
Wait a second. Do you guys actually think that that's like a huge meme? You don't think there might be any validity to that?
What?
Wait,
what?
how
Flat?
Okay, hey, Destiny.
Based on our current understanding of gravity.
Memeing us. You're kidding, right?
Yeah. Well, so like, I guess like when I think of things, this sounds really memey, but I'm really big on like observable, empirical, data-driven kind of answers. I don't know. I feel like a lot of I feel like there are a lot of descriptive and predictive powers to a lot of the things that flat earthers say. Like, what's an example of something that you think can't work?
Oh, you're
I'm not trolling. I'm serious. Give me what are some things that you think can't be predicted or can't be explained by flat earth theory? I'm legitimately curious.
Destiny, did you see the picture that I just posted in chat?
Hold on.
Question.
Okay, wait.
How does the flat Earth explain seasons?
Dude, explain.
Because
I asked that earlier to a flat earther, and they just sent me this little fucking picture, and it just shows the sun going around in circles on the.
Yeah, the sun travels around in the sky. The sun will travel around the Earth, or will be tilted differently based on the axis of the Earth. It's kind of similar to how it works in your spherical model or whatever. But I mean, it would work pretty much the same way. Just because the Earth is flat doesn't mean it can't tilt along an axis with the sun moving around it above.
Okay,
Destiny, just
and then with the
hold on, Destiny. Are you looking at the picture that I posted?
Yeah.
Okay. See how there's a red circle at the North Pole, then there's a red circle around Africa, Papua New Guinea, and South America.
Okay.
From that, it would follow that the circumference on those is wider than those in the center, right? And we could extrapolate that. A flight time would take longer from South America.
Okay, I'm sorry. So a few days ago, I said that late at night, when I was supposed to be going to sleep, I hopped on the server and I started having a flat Earth discussion. And I brought it up, and apparently some guy emailed me, and he said he heard me talking about this, but he actually recorded it. So he sent me the recording of it. So that's what we're listening to.
From the northern and southern hemispheres, we could follow.
Sure, but I guess like the problem with this kind of stuff, this is going to sound like a huge fucking cop-out, but the problem is that it's impossible for anybody to independently verify these measures on their own. Like, no scientist will ever get in a truck and drive in a straight line and actually measure out to verify that these distances are accurate.
But what about flight? Hold on, flight.
Destiny,
What about flight time?
How can meta accumulate and not form a sphere eventually?
Because it doesn't necessarily have to. Or what do you mean?
What's the model?
If it's enough matter,
pattern,
it's gonna form a sphere.
Wait, why does it always have to form a sphere?
Because if you measure the force of gravity and then you measure the mass of the Earth, like that we predicted that, then the model predicts that it was formed a sphere.
Wait, what? Wait, why can't matter just form a disk?
Huh?
It can
form a disk, but
because of the way the force works, right? Like a certain amount of mass has a gravitational attraction, which is a certain amount of force in all directions, right? So if you have enough matter in one thing, it will collapse.
Spherical.
Yeah.
Well, let's say that you were to lay out matter like in a flat. Why can't the matter just come together and form like a flat?
But you would have to lay it out in the flat plane.
How would it be flat?
How would it be a sphere? Why do you get to assume that it would have started out as a sphere?
It starts out as particles attracting to each other, right, and clumping together, and the way they come together is in the form of the sphere.
But not necessarily.
But
well, that's what
Destiny.
Necessarily.
Wait. Okay, no. Let's say that you blew up a disk in space. Okay, it was a flat disk.
Yeah.
And it kind of when I say blow it up, like you just like crumbled all of it, right? So it was just kind of in space, laying there as like a flat thing. When gravity kind of like pulls it together, all it's going to do is like from the ends like push it in. It's not going to necessarily make it into a sphere or anything.
Yeah, but if the force, if you have enough matter,
a specific amount. Yeah, a specific amount.
If you have enough matter, then the force is great enough that it will turn it into a sphere. So if you have like
wait, what do you mean by enough matter? Why should it matter how much matter there is?
Because the more matter, the more gravity, right? That's pulling it together. and if the gravity overcomes the structural integrity of the whatever you have, the thing.
Well, but then, like, why? Well, if this was so true, then why is it that things like why is the Earth not even a? Because even in your spherical model, so this is interesting because I've heard a lot of people that say they're into physics will claim this that like all matter will.
It's not all matter.
I'm sorry. Hello.
It's not all matter.
My cut out. I'm sorry. That you guys always say that all matter will form a sphere. Okay. So, but the problem is that even in your models, you guys have to bulge the Earth at the center because it's not even a perfect sphere in your model. It's an obloid sphere, right? It's not even a perfect circle. So why did it?
Yeah, because it's not perfect uniform density, right? And it's not it's not made of all the same material, so the gravitational forces are different.
There is a predictable bulge in the center of the Earth in the same way that you need it in order to make it work because you have it set up as a sphere when it could be flat. Like that bulge that exists at the middle of the Earth, like they try to explain it away while also saying that all matter forms a sphere, but that bulge is only there because it seems like they need it to kind of explain how the sphere math even works.
Wait, which bulge? What's this bulge?
So if you look at every single planet that is supposedly a sphere in the solar system, all of them, actually we can Google it, it's called equatorial bulge.
Wait, hold on. Why aren't those spheres flat? If they're in our solar system.
Well, I'm not even sure if we can really see them.
We actually can.
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, have you ever actually looked into a telescope like that?
Yeah.
Look, all I'm saying is, look, you can Google equatorial bulge. How is it that a rotating body will form a bulge at the sphere when it should be forming perfect circles? I don't understand.
Perfect circle?
Look, every single planet has this perfect bulge that just so happens to explain the position of all the continents. Why?
Explain the position of all the continents. What do you mean by that?
Look, all I'm saying is that there are maps with flat Earth where everything fits perfectly. But as soon as you try to make Earth into a sphere, you've got to start adding all these really weird conditionals in order to put the continents where they're supposed to be. Like you're talking about flight paths and stuff. The only reason why you can explain them is because you have to add this weird bulge in the center of a sphere that's supposed to be a perfect sphere according to your model.
If you're discounting the evidence of a telescope. If you're discounting the evidence of telescopes by saying, can you really look at it like that? I just want to know if you have any evidence for flat Earth.
My heart hurt.
Well, I think that, I mean, if you look at the models and you look at, I mean, just look at the Earth. I mean, I've traveled in airplanes. I've traveled internationally. Like, I've flown all over the world. I've been to South Korea, Poland, Germany. I've never seen, like, the curvature of the Earth at all.
Do you have any evidence for flat Earth?
Well, the observation that we both make is that the Earth is flat. You're the one that's making the extraordinary claim that it's actually round.
I've seen the horizon. You can't see all over it, so.
Well, but all of that is explained in flat Earth theory.
You can go on YouTube right now.
Okay, so wait, no. Okay, so I want you to explain me this. 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 People, you guys claim. Hold on, you guys claim that black holes can suck in light, right?
Not sucking light, they absorb light.
Why is it that the sunlight, right, goes over the planet like just perfectly, but it never gets sucked into the planet? Like flat Earth totally.
Because the escape, because the mass of the black hole is so great that the escape velocity of the speed of light isn't as high enough, so it can't.
So once again,
and that's if the light reaches the event horizon of the black hole.
Yeah, but once again, you have it perfectly explained so that your light is just fast enough to get away from the Earth and Jupiter.
Wait, Destiny, listen. If I throw a ball up in the air, wait. If I throw a ball up in the air at 300,000 kilometers a second, it'll keep.
Oh shit! Did you get kicked out of Discord?
Through a tennis ball at the same speed on a black hole, it would go back down because the gravitational force is like greater than the speed of light. Like it can't just come back.
Okay, so what about like Jupiter, or how about the sun? The sun is so huge. How can light get away from that without a problem?
It produces light. The electromagnetism that happens from nuclear fusion within its core is what produces light.
Yeah, but why can the light escape from the sun? Why doesn't the light orbit the sun like the planets supposedly do? Why does no light ever?
It's a photon. It has zero.
It has zero what?
Mass.
Well, it has zero.
Wait, if it has zero mass, then how is it impacted by gravity?
Well, it still is, but. Well, like
okay, but then if it still is, then why doesn't it end up like orbiting the sun?
Well,
like, why can't I see like an orbit of light around the sun? Because like if the light is being shot off the sun, shouldn't it eventually slow down and lose momentum and then start orbiting around the sun? Like
no, because it has no mass.
But then if it has no mass, how does it fall into a black hole?
Because no. Because a black hole bends space-time and not just fucking doesn't just have
No, because
Well,
according
all
to you
planets-
guys,
planets
everything
will-
bends space-time. You guys
Yeah,
say that
enough
everything
with
bends
enough mass.
space-time.
Well, yeah,
Enough-
everything technically does.
enough to like keep them from escaping.
Sure.
Like,
So like
enough
this is how it's explained
Matter
in flat
bends.
Earth. This is how it's explained in flat Earth. When you shine a
You could
light,
just take it. Wait, you could just take it with the atoms. You could say, well, the atoms fusing together, and then the neutrons, like the protons decaying into a neutrons, creating outwards pressure and like light. Why doesn't that just orbit around it? Well, then you wouldn't have the structure of the star.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that flat Earth theory perfectly explains that when you shine a light, it falls off just like anything else would. This is why things disappear over the horizon, because the light is falling off. It's totally consistent everywhere on Earth, whereas you guys are trying to tell me that, well, sometimes light has no mass, sometimes it's captured by
No,
really big
virtually
black
no
holes.
mass.
It's
You
not
can't.
captured. Okay,
What is the
it's not
mass of?
captured by-
Wait, what is?
It's not captured by the
Wait,
sun.
okay, well,
It's not captured
Destiny,
by
what is the mass? What is the mass of a proton? Oh, sorry, of a.
Guys, photons have mass.
Yeah, but no,
equals
yeah,
MC
well,
squared.
look,
It
Wait,
has
what?
to have mass.
Virtually-
No, photons
virtually-
don't have mass.
no, a photon. They don't have
Photons
mass.
have
Photon
mass.
has no mass.
What?
It has
Look
no
up
mass.
the mass of a photon right now.
It's
It has not.
insignificant, but it has mass.
Yeah, but virtually zero mass. Like if you look it up, it'll say it has zero mass.
But it's not zero.
No.
Okay, for
Photon-
being,
It is
for being nitty gritty, I guess it does, but like.
Well, yeah, but it's zero mass.
99.9% empty space.
So shouldn't we just be like falling off the Earth if everything just like falls off? Like,
No.
No.
That would have
Underneath
pushed
it.
everything
Wait,
out.
hold on.
If
You're
Yeah,
held
yeah,
down.
yeah,
You're
I
held down to the Earth by buoyant forces.
Yeah, but shouldn't
the
I
ice
like
wall.
fall
Pressure
off
is
if I
pushing-
travel far enough? If I travel far enough, shouldn't I like find the end of the Earth and like drop off?
I don't know. I mean, it's an
No,
interesting
because
question.
it's
Has anybody done?
Antarctica,
Well-
duh. You haven't been to Antarctica yet. That's why you haven't fucking fallen off.
It's called the ice wall. Oh, dude.
Yeah, that's what
Fuck is this,
holds
Game of
thing.
Thrones?
Why is the moon?
Wait,
Why is the
is the
moon
ice-
spherical?
Who says the moon is spherical? I don't believe that.
The
Destiny.
moon isn't real. It's just a fucking projection. What do you mean?
Why does the Earth cast like a,
illusion.
a spherical shadow across the moon?
Destiny. Okay, in the northern hemisphere, water flushes clockwise. Southern
Also
hemisphere,
gravity. Yeah,
it
also
flushes
gravity.
counterclockwise. How do you explain this?
That can all be explained. Just because it's a flat Earth doesn't mean it can't rotate and spin around an axis.
Hold
By
on,
the way-
no, Destiny. Okay,
No,
so
how does
But
that?
wouldn't
That
it-
would
but
still
what
What
count
about
as
the
a
moon?
water
Wait, I want to
setting.
ask the moon question. I want to ask the moon question. Why does it? Wait, you've got a degree
No,
in
listen,
physics,
like
Age.
the moon, like you bring up the moon, and it's the
Age.
perfect point. Listen, you guys say
Wait,
that the
Age
moon
is a-
is
Age is a
sphere.
degree.
Why
I
do we
have a
always see
question,
the
though.
same
Hold
side
on.
of the moon? Why do we always see the same side of the moon? Why doesn't the moon spin around us?
Well, because of the way it orbits around us.
Oh, come on! Like every single thing you have like a caveat for. If I say the moon is flat,
No, but
that's why
that's
you
why.
only
Well,
see
no,
one
that's why.
side.
No,
That's
but
super
you
common
plug
sense.
it. You
But now
plug
you're
But that's
saying
why.
that the
Plug
moon
this
spins
Because
into
it's
the
the
model.
way it
Right?
orbits around the Earth.
You plug the mass into the model of the moon, the mass of the Earth, the rotation, blah 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 blah, and it all comes out that way, right? So if you put it into the model, this thing comes out, and it happens to be like when we look at it, that's also the thing. So that's why we say like, oh yeah.
It's just to say that the Earth is flat, you would have to assume that all the other planets, as including the sun and the moon, are
Mhm.
flat as well.
Sure.
Like, you're fine with that logic?
Yeah, of course.
So
I mean,
it's
like I
just
said, like
one big mirror.
No, no,
room or
no, no, no.
something?
when you look at things like the moon, right? You give all these weird explanations about, well, it perfectly orbits, so we always see the same side. Like, okay, well, what if it's
Doesn't
just flat?
perfectly orbit.
It makes perfect sense if you just assume that it's flat and it moves on top of the planet in like a
So-
circular manner.
Is the solar system
You're
like
trolling, dude.
one big
You're fucking
disco
trolling.
ball?
It like I don't know. Like the
Is it one big
frustrating
disco
is
ball?
that
Like, think about it.
the frustrating thing is that every single time, like you have a rule, you always have an exception for the rule in order to make your model work, which is
Wait,
bad
what's
model.
our exception?
Like,
What's our
I just
Well,
what's our exception?
earlier, all of you guys were very adamant that all matter in space would form a sphere, but then I tried to
No,
have
No, no,
it-
no, we didn't say that. We said
We
once
said
it gets
once a-
significant.
we said yeah,
You
once
gotta
a
be
specific
exceptional
accumulation of matter forms, it'll form a sphere.
No,
Not
once
just
you have
matter will
enough
form a
mass.
sphere.
Once you have
Yeah,
enough
once you have-
mass,
well, sorry,
right?
yeah,
When you
mass,
have
yeah.
enough, when you have enough mass.
You also brought up how
Also-
scientists would never measure like the different flight paths where people actually have done that. So
It's not.
Wait, it's not. Yeah, but the Earth couldn't be. The Earth couldn't do that, obviously.
By the way, gravity affects all that has energy, not just mass. So just so you know, and photons have energy.
Oh.
Also,
No. Gravity affects space-time, and energy is affected by space-time.
Gravity is really like.
Okay, so then
gravity
how-
doesn't
so then how
directly
is it-
affect the energy.
So then why don't we see any
yeah.
photons orbiting the sun? Why don't we see that? And why is it that light is able to get past planets like Jupiter with no problem? Shouldn't we see giant shadows behind these planets?
Because photons,
I'm convinced.
photons are wave particles, right?
There's no argument against that.
Well, I'm genuinely curious. Why is it that I can't look out? Okay, listen, if we were to shoot something off of the planet Earth, right? If Earth was a fucking massive thing, like the sun is supposed to be like 1,000,000 times bigger than the Earth, why is it that we don't see the photons coming back to the sun to orbit the sun?
With your eyes can't really see it. Physically.
Why is it?
Then you could
wait,
just,
so you're
then you
saying
could
that
just
there
pose
is,
the
like-
question. But wait. Then you could just pose the question. Well, why are the atoms in the center of the red supergiant star fucking fusing? Why aren't they like going back to orbit the sun? Like, I don't know.
Well, because they're kept inside the sun.
What?
No, but
What's keeping
like you
them
keep
inside
going,
the
you
sun?
keep going out to like the outer layers of the star, and you see like different fusions happening.
What?
So you could just ask the same questions for each like layer. You could look at like just like loosely flying like nucleuses like at the end like of the star and say like why isn't that going into the core of the star?
Wait, so what are you asking me again? I'm sorry.
I'm just saying you could just say that for that. I don't have an actual explanation for that, but I'm pretty sure it'd be for what Destiny was talking about the photons.
No, I'm just asking why when the photons are launched off the sun, which is supposedly fucking huge, why they aren't drawn back into it. Why is it only black holes, which is the only way that you guys can explain away like your insane model.
The reason why light doesn't escape black holes is because the escape velocity or whatever is greater than that which light travels at.
Yeah, the sun doesn't have enough gravitational
I mean, like,
pull.
So, like, here's what I have to look at, right? Here's what I have to look at from an evidence point of view, okay? You guys are saying, okay, the only way that
photons
your
have
model of
virtually
the
no
galaxy
mass.
can work, the
Science
only way your
also-
model of the galaxy can work is if you put a supermassive black hole in the middle. This happens to be the only thing that light can escape from, but you also don't know anything about it. But I can't
In
see
the
light
middle.
being dragged
What do you mean in the middle?
in the middle of the Milky Way galaxy. Supposedly there's a supermassive black hole there that holds
Oh yeah.
everything.
In
Yeah,
the middle
so
of our galaxy,
you have
yeah.
this perfect thing that you have no idea how they work. How does a black hole even work? Nobody can explain it. Nobody can tell you what happens to people inside it.
Once
Yeah,
there's
so
enough
you have no
mass.
explanation for it.
You can
You've
Once
invented
there's
this
enough
thing.
mass density, it'll form a black hole.
How can you even see
Yeah,
a black hole?
literally,
Destiny,
Wait,
Destiny.
here's a question. When you point a telescope at
anything in the
something-
world,
when you-
anything in the world could become a black hole theoretically if you condensed it enough.
Okay, so then why hasn't the large
Regardless.
Because it's not enough. It's not enough. Wait,
Destiny,
a large
you
hadron
still have
collider.
not
Yeah, they're
addressed
just
the-
shooting protons and antiprotons. at
Wait,
each other.
not address what?
You haven't addressed the flight times argument that I gave. Like
All the flight times I think have been worked out on paper such that they all work out just fine. Like you're trying to tell me that you know what the exact flight times is, but every time they're slightly different, people always say, well, because the wind speeds are one thing or the wind currents were another. Like,
Well, that's a margin of error in the context. That's a margin of error of the context
holy shit.
variability, but it still doesn't mean the Earth is flat. It
I
means
mean,
we're
I would
still
have
a
to see.
sphere.
I would have to see a map of the flight times because all the maps that I've seen with flat Earth show the flight times working out just fine.
Oh my god. Okay. Shut the
Wait,
fuck-
Destiny, I actually have a question. I need to ask this for a while.
Yeah,
So, if the ship sails out far enough, it'll look like it's sinking.
correct.
Right? This is
Yep.
how we figured out how the Earth. This is how the Greeks figured out the Earth was round.
Well, this is from your faulty assumption that light travels so fast that even though you guys say somehow it has mass, but it doesn't really fall to the
No, it
planet.
doesn't.
If you assume,
You would-
you said it as a little bit, but if you assume that
doesn't
light
have-
if you assume that light falls into the planet just like anything else does, like everything else is
Doesn't fall.
predicted to, then you would assume that as the ship moves farther and farther away, the light kind of falls off as it gets to you, and it appears to fall over the horizon. That's like an illusion created by the light falling off as it gets farther away.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. The Earth has a very slight gravitational pull on light. So like it very slightly bends the light. So like it would fall off, but it's very slight.
Yeah,
only.
Well, yeah,
Light-
that's
light
why a ship has
virtually
to
has
travel.
zero
This is
mass,
why a
like,
ship has to
virtually.
travel away hundreds of thousands of miles in order for you to see it fall off, because light falls off very, very slightly. Sure, I don't disagree with that. Hundreds of thousands of miles.
No. It falls off because everything that has matter pulls on light. But the thing about light is that it has no mass, and thus the pull on it is so minimal because a photon has so little energy that it barely doesn't fall off at all. But if you compare it, like,
I mean, like, again, I don't want to disagree with you. Like, I agree with everything you're saying. It's just you're telling me that it just
You're like
so
tiny,
fast.
infinitesimally small packets of energy.
Well, but like you're trying to say that it's so fast and all of this is so true that the only thing that is able to capture this are black holes that you know nothing about.
Because...
That are
Wait, no, we can accurately measure.
Okay, you answer me this question. Can you just answer me this question? How do you even know a black hole exists if looking through telescopes, supposedly you're looking at light?
Because our model, our model of like reality, like gravity and shit, predicts black holes. So we say black holes.
Wait, and we've detected gravitational
like you
waves
can't
from black holes.
take some part of the theory and then throw
We've
the rest of it out.
We've detected gravitational waves from black holes.
I mean, you've detected it, or
and special and general relativity predicted it like
this is the
100 years
thing.
before.
Like all of it is stuff. Like you can't go and run any test yourself to verify this, but I could run every test I want to verify flat Earth. I could take measurements of a ship going over the horizon and shining a laser point back. I can show you the fall off of the light as it gets farther away. The light will drop further and further on the board. Like all of my measurements make sense.
Well, you could work it like
all that tells you
a,
is you're living
like
on a
space
relatively
center.
flat plane, right?
Well, but as
You could
the
work it
boat
like
gets
a
farther
space
and farther
observatory
away,
center.
the laser will drop in a predicted manner because light falls off the same way that it would from the sun or the same way that it would from anything else. Like, how can you think the sun is hundreds of millions of miles away? Wouldn't it all fall off before it like even would get to the Earth? Like, it's just so I don't know. It's also weird. Or like, why doesn't Jupiter pull more light into it? Why don't you see any light orbiting the sun? Like, none of these questions are answered at all in your model.
Well, yeah, because photons have virtually no mass.
Except for when it comes to black holes.
What do you mean? No, that's because the gravitational
So
field
the
of
only
the black
thing in the
hole is
universe
greater than
the
the escape
only thing in
velocity
the
of light.
universe that can suck in light is a theorized object that you can't see or test for in any way. That it supposedly exists hundreds of thousands of light years away.
We've detected gravitational waves from black holes.
Well, they've said they've detected.
Well, I'm
But
sure
we have no real evidence of that. I mean,
Oh god.
Wait, so
It's just another appeal
It's
to
just special relativity.
wait, so why do you think the
that
Earth?
you can't
They'd
prove.
want us to think the Earth is flat. Why would they just lie all this time about the Earth being round?
because it's the goddamn Jews.
Oh, fuck! You got me there.
Okay, let's. I think I'm done. I thought it was a good meme.